All right. Well, thanks for agreeing to a little chat here, Representative McKean. I should say Leader McKean, the GOP leader in the Colorado State House. Why don't you, before we get into questions, why don't you tell us what district you represent and where it's located?
Anything for you, Senator Brophy. And listen to how we talk at each other, right? He's Senator Brophy. Everybody else just calls him Greg. So I am House District 51, which is the beautiful, beautiful city of Loveland, Colorado. And,
nice.
and the surrounding environs, enough to include BJ Nichols' back fence.
There we go.
There you
go.
All
right. Well, and I am former senator, just an old has-been now, and now the Colorado director of the Western Way, which is what we wanted to ask you to do a little interview with the Western Way to talk about one of your bills, House Bill 1052, which would include pumped hydro in the definition of renewable energy in the state of Colorado. Now, we currently have a couple of projects in Colorado that are industrial scale that do pump hydro. How would a bill like this increase the amount of pumped hydro or the interest in pumped hydro in the state of Colorado?
Well, really, this bill came out of my brain and attending some sessions over at the National Renewable Energy Lab over in Golden. And it came out that there's actually a prohibition against pumped hydro being included as recycled energy in the state of Colorado, which to me made no sense. And so small scale, less than 15 megawatt operations could include this as just a natural part of what they do. And we have some reservoirs that are heading toward permitting right now that are literally going to pump water for storage before it's released to go to another reservoir. This would actually allow them to put in small scale pumped hydro where they're already doing the work no matter what, and use it as a credit for recycled or renewable energy. So it's my conception too that when we talk, and especially within my Republican caucus, when we talk about all of the above energy, we need to really be serious about that.
Right on. And then, so do you see this as primarily short or long-term storage? How does it differ from the lithium ion storage that they're starting to work on right now? And also, just in light of all of that, in light of what we saw down in Texas, I mean, are you having a little more reception for the idea of increasing the amount of backup storage that we have in Colorado?
Well, you would think that it would be, open arms embrace of anything that's rampable, right? And that's really what this is it's a storage technology that allows you to ramp up to maximum production very quickly within a matter of minutes. You can have one of these facilities producing at optimal turbine speeds and putting out power into the grid, which is exactly what we needed during the whole Texas thing. And the problem was, not just that renewables were stalled out up here. We don't have that much renewables right now in northern Colorado. But what we had was a natural gas shortage, which meant that we couldn't put any of our direct turbine natural gas power plants online. Combined cycle, which is kind of a departing technology, none of those could be put online. And so that was the problem, is that the constriction in Texas actually involved us up here on the natural gas side. So this is a big battery. The great thing about this, you don't have to mine tens of millions of square meters of earth out of the ground to get like 2 tablespoons of lithium from it. So, this one, it's there, the water's there, and you're actually pumping the water back and forth. So you're actually not using the water. You have to augment some evaporation, and that's about it.
Right. So it's completely recyclable. But as you said earlier, that it's not currently allowed. And so let me bring that in with another picture here, that it seems to me like the not allowing pumped hydro as recyclable electricity in Colorado by law. It's a little bit like the angst towards nuclear power. And I think you said earlier that you and a lot of your Republican colleagues favor an all of the above strategy for the production of energy. It seems like pumped hydro and nuclear power are completely out of favor with the environmental community. And it's a shame, because both of them seem like they add reliability that we desperately need to our electrical grid. Any comments on that?
Yeah, let's think about where we're going. So we have a world that is more dependent on electricity than it ever has been in the past. I grew up farming in North Missouri, and occasionally a squirrel would arc across the fuse of the transformer on the pole. And if you've never seen that, you probably should. But The fact is we'd lose power. And so we went to candles and, and whatever else we needed. We had a fireplace. Today's world is going to demand things other than candles and a fireplace, right? Because if GM and Ford are going to go to all electric vehicles, you're going to have every house is going to need to have a 200 amp service to that house. So doubling the current service that's put in when residences are constructed, most of Colorado. And so if we're going to keep demanding electricity, we've got to do better about making sure we're going to be able to get it. And if we demand 100% renewables, then the challenge is going to be, well, it's twofold, really. NREL will tell you that they have only demonstrated stability of the grid to about 30% of renewables. And that's because they fluctuate so much. And because of their fluctuation, there isn't a lot of storage, right? You can't store wind right now. You can't store solar. So you need to use it while you've got it. And the challenge, of course, is that that's the very thing we needed on Valentine's Day. We needed stored energy to be produced and put on the grid. And in this case, pumped hydro makes tons of sense. Nuclear is actually this very interesting, what would I say? It's a technology that we have been perfecting for years. And it's just an emotional kind of thing. People don't like nuclear because it says nuclear, but really, truly, we can do it safely. Down in Texas, some of those big nuclear plants had to be taken offline because their safety valves were frozen and couldn't operate properly. And so just for safety reasons, they shut it all down. We already know that we're going to get cold days in Colorado, and we can definitely anticipate those things happening and make sure that it's done safely. In fact, we still have up in North Platte, we still have nuclear fuel stored right here in Colorado, and we probably ought to put it to use.
Right. So so still sticking with the big picture look. Let's think about conservatives, Republicans, and environmental issues. For a long time, there's been this narrative that conservatives don't care about the environment. You're running a bill that, to me, says you care a lot about the environment. You care to talk a little bit about how a conservative like yourself from Northern Colorado looks towards environmental conservation and responsibleness, but at the same time ensuring that we can grow our economy?
So a lot of my friends like to hunt. And they will be the very first to tell you, and I'll be the first to tell you, that they are the ultimate conservationist, right? We want that resource. We don't just want to see the elk out in the pasture, but we understand the need for hunting and improving that herd. And I think that that's actually the ethic we bring to everything, which is the common sense side of things. You can't just have a world of pie in the sky ideology of, well, we would like to have this. What it ends up really taking is, what do we need? Balance that with what you want. And what we all want is clean air, clean water, clean places for our kids to run and go play. Now, I remember a few years ago, I went up to Red Mountain Open Space, which is up north of Fort Collins. And my son was incredibly lucky to pull one of the elk permits up in Red Mountain. And we had a minute sitting up on the hillside as the sun broke over the mountains and just started warming us up finally. And we were just sitting there talking about what it means to be a part of that world. Right? So hunting for me is being a part of that other world, and a part of where you are no longer just sort of the alpha in that whole thing and the apex of that pyramid. You now have to respond to all of the other pieces of it. And to me, that's the practicality of what a lot of conservative Republicans come with, is that we understand we're a part of this. We don't control it. And I think that's truly the difference, is that so many people, especially who are ideologically driven on the other side, they feel like we ought to be controlling it. And I think it's that sense of humility that we have. We're very, very conservation minded. We just want to make sure it's practical.
I like to say it's the difference between understanding what conserving is versus preserving is. So conservatives are in favor of conservation, whereas some of the ideologues are in favor of preservation, never using it, and therefore never allowing us to have access to it. So let's look at one more big picture question. You are the leader of the Republicans in the Colorado State House of Representatives. How can conservatives in a state like Colorado, this is the outdoor state. This is the state where everybody goes hiking on the weekend. How can conservatives talk about these environmental issues in a way that resonates with those unaffiliated voters that we need to convince that our ideas are the ideas that actually work to solve these problems?
I think it's that whole big picture. What I was getting ready to say is, my dad used to say to me, Hugh, they want us huddled, shivering in the dark. right? So you think about it, huddled, we have no shelter, shivering, we have no heat, in the dark, we have no ability to turn on the lights. And so the challenge here is what you said. It's that idea between conservation and preservation. And part of conservation is functionally living within the world to the best benefit of everyone, right? I mean, that's truly what we're talking about. And it's to the best benefit of the wildlife and the natural world and humans, because we all operate together here. And so I think what we really do to reach out to those unaffiliated voters is to remind them that there's an operational side of conservation that's really important to remember. And that is that we do want energy to use. We do want the best. We want best medical technology. We want the best in all of the things that we've improved over the years. And so it's that desire to see each other succeed in a way that benefits the world as a whole. That's a message that actually literally reaches every independent, unaffiliated, soft Democrat that I know.
I think so. It's a good idea. And I think that your bill raises it, whether it passes or fails, raising this issue, especially at a time when we saw in Texas what it is like to be huddled in the dark and freezing. And we want to figure out how to both use more and more of the new technologies for generating electricity and have the reliability that we all know we want and frankly deserve. And I think a bill like yours, House Bill 1052, fits that bill quite well. And I thank you for bringing it. Thank you for the interview with the Western Way this afternoon. Good talking to you.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate it. And thanks for all the work you do.